Hello and welcome to Antepost Insight episode 3. In this particular episode, I'm going to give you a quick skim through my personal BetLoader. Um, I know lots of people will say that it's not always wise to be showing people your stakes or those sort of things, but I'm an open book. You guys can ask me questions and I'm happy to answer. So, something like this, it doesn't really fuss me that I'll be showing it. We're also going to be reverting to odds checker as per, and we'll talk a little bit about what I'm looking for at the moment and what sort of things might have been happening over the last few weeks. Now, the reason I created the BetLoader is ultimately I'm a data analyst by trade anyway. Doing this sort of thing is pretty much a bit of fun for me. And basically, it's just important to be able to get a real good understanding of the type of bets you've got on, where you've got coverage, and then what you might need to do about it after. Um, you can see that the total staked and then the total live stake. I have obviously lost an amount of stakes before the festival's even kicked off, before we're even sort of anywhere near the festival, really. But there's been worse years than this. At the moment, it's a fairly steady position. Also, year on year, I sort of try and learn where I'm making the most money in terms of steady profit. So singles typically are the best way to be betting when it comes anti-post punting because we're getting juicy value on some of these horses. I will stick a number of multiples on as well. Around about 85% of my stakes, as it stands, are on singles. And then a new piece that I've built into the BetLoader, which anyone that's currently using it won't have access to this particular icon. It'll be something that I'll add in year on year. We do add in. I'm going to talk you through that one as the main point for this. Um, and really, we'll just go from there. So, just a quick skim through the BetLoader for anyone that hasn't seen it before. You can add in your selections within here. It can put multiples and all those sorts of things in there. You can remove selections if you need to by searching a horse's name, and then it will remove those selections. Um, you can also remove them non-runner no bet. So when the bets are struck, if you've got a treble, for example, and one of them's a non-runner, it will then go down to a double. It's smart enough to work these sort of things out for you. Um, I'm not the only person that will be striking multiple anti-post selections. I probably do go a bit more overboard than other people, but it's handy to store these sort of things in there. We can look at a day-by-day view, so this gives us an idea of multiples that will be starting on a certain day. Um, you've got the ability within this file as well to drop it out as an email, so you can get everything sent out to you. You've got the Dreamweaver, the results calculator, where you can type in a particular result. So we'll say that Benny Deju has won the mares, and it tells us down the bottom what the potential returns are from that single selection. If we were to stick in a couple, so we're dreaming about what's happening here, it gives us the total potential returns, and in the table behind it shows us how much we've staked on that event and how much we actually won, returned back for that particular result coming in. So the result calculator is handy for, let's say you think Abacadabras is going to win the Supreme and you think Notebook's going to win the Arkle. You feel like you're fully loaded on those two selections. Now it comes to the case that you end up putting the results in here, and actually when you look at it, you're not actually going to win as much money as you thought you would. The point of having that visual before the festival starts is you don't want to be going end of day one, you feel like you've had a great day and your bank balance doesn't represent that. Time in advance now, or there's still some value in some of the prices, you want to be looking at those that you might want to be boosting up. So the result calculator is a great way of doing that. Obviously, it shows you the total stake on the event, and you saw the total returns to the right hand side of that. What's also important with the anti-post punting, I always stress, is that you want to get away from the mentality that you can only back one horse in a race, or potentially limit yourself to two. Now, you don't want to limit yourself to any particular number of horses in a race. It's all about value, and it's all about the coverage of a particular race. And that's where this new tab comes in that I'll be able to show you exactly what's going on. The cup icon, which I won't use, where you put actual results in from the festival. So if you were to put this in, there's a warning message that comes up, but you'll pick a particular race, you'll type the result in, and what this does is it amends the main table on this front sheet. So any doubles that you've got, where the first leg's already won, they'll now be represented as singles. So when you're looking at it on a day-by-day basis, you'll know that, for example, Paisley Park is running for X amount of money based on previous results that have already happened. We've got something in here that shows us sort of staked value, so you can see the coverage you've got on certain horses. Um, this isn't just down to singles, this is multiples. So if you had a £25 double on Paisley Park and Benny Digier, that would be doubly counted within here. You can select a number of horses to see where your coverage is on a few of them, and it gives you the figures. And then you can do the same likewise for a race value. So, for example, you can see here that in this year, I've had quite a lot of money that's on the any race markets. Something I've dipped into a little bit more earlier on in the season than I would have done last year. Stairs Hurdle's obviously well covered. That's to do with Paisley. Mares Hurdle again. Benny Digiu we saw on the last one. They're sort of covered in there, but you can see where the spread is. And not that I'm particularly fussed about getting these all even or any of those sorts of things, but it just gives you an idea of the races that you might have dipped your toe into. You could also do the same thing for lost stakes. So we can see here I've already lost 50 quid on the Supreme. Already lost 42 quid's worth of bets on the Mares Novice. You can see there's a reasonable amount of money that's been lost. Now this number won't tie in with the total stakes and total live stake because, as I say, if we've got a £25 double on the Supreme and the Mares Novice, it will be relatively double counted in here. But it just gives you a good idea for some coverage. Lets you basically have a look at your spreadsheet, get some more value out of your bets because you get to spend more time looking at them. So the any race horses, I haven't typed the particular race they'll be going for. As they're listed in here, they are listed just down as the any race. But once we get the final targets confirmed, the races will be changed and chopped about. So if I've backed a horse for the Supreme and it goes Ballymore, I will remove that as a non-runner no bet horse. That will amend the bets as and where. Most of my bets are anti-post, so it will be down as a loser. If there's a horse that's in any race and I know that it's definitely going to go for the RSA, obviously once it gets nearer, I will put in the targets they're going for. But looking at it a little bit further out, this is essentially still the moment where anything's possible. It's really handy to look at this new tab that I've got within here. So we'll start off with the best example, because I've gone through this before. I do look at it quite frequently. I'll start off with the best example that I can give you within here. Sort of, it's the cleanest one, I suppose, is to pick up. So there's quite a lot that's going on in here. Mares Novice Hurdle. Now, the best reason why this is the best example is it shows a bit of everything, and it's just easy for me to explain, really. So we can see our live stakes are around about 70 quid. We've lost 25 quid, which was a £25 single on Gypsy Island at the beginning of the season. So the combined stakes are £95. So that combined stake figure is what's being used to calculate and drive these sort of representative lowest and highest odds. Ultimately, across the Mares Novice Hurdle, I've staked £95. So any returns that I get back in terms of a sort of like a price, the way to look at it, because we're backing multiple horses, is split by the the total payout divided by the combined stakes. So easy to look at it down here. The lowest payout we have here from any of these selections is actually Marie's Rock, 260 quid it pays. So because I've staked £95 in the first place, that is relative of a 2.75 poke, or essentially a 7 to 4 shot. You can see the highest payouts in there is 377.50, which is Dulcita for Willie Mullins. Again, it's driven the fact that I've done £95 worth of stakes in the first place. So in relative terms, it's about a 3 to 1 shot. So we're looking at worst case scenario in the Mares Novice is a 7 to 4 shot in terms of payout, and the best payout for me relatively is a 3 to 1 shot. Now you can see further down here the actual odds that I've backed these horses at. Lamarck Ice, there's been some positive news come out about her recently, which is really good. I've backed them at bigger prices, as you can see. You can see the current odds are on this right-hand side. And what we're doing with the current odds is that's going to work out our percentage chance of actually getting a winner in the race. Now, we know bookmakers don't back at 100%. I also know that some of these odds I could be boosting. But just to give a sort of a quick dash figure in terms of percentage chance, we're just using the top price that's available with an odds checker. The icons on the right-hand side, where they're all green here, is basically just a quick fire symbol to say whether you've beaten the price or not. So obviously, we want to be making money at the end of the day, but longer term in terms of Antepost, the more green dots I can get on here, the better. I want very, very, very little red dots in here. I'd like to think I'm a good enough judge to know when to back horses to beat the price. And also, I've mentioned in earlier videos that using something like Bet365 and potentially backing them at big prices, you might only lose 5% of your stake. It's low risk, and I tend to take myself out of bad position bets without a loss. Not always possible to do, but in the majority of cases. So anyhow, we've gone through the fact that we've got 7 to 4 is the representative lowest payout, and we've got 3 to 1 is the biggest payout. And obviously there's an array of things in between, but you can see they're all 360, so they're all reasonable payouts. Now, on the current odds, to work out the percentage chance of what's going to, like the likelihood of me backing a winner, the relative odds are it's a 5 to 6 shot. So it's slightly odds on, but let's just say, for conversation's sake, it's an even money shot because of the spread I've got across these horses that I am going to back the winner in the Mare's Novice Hurdle. And you can see the fact that it's a 50-50 chance whether I'm going to get it. It's a coin flip, but in terms of payout for my £95 invested, I'm not getting the even money payout. I'm not just going to get £190 back. My lowest paying dividend is 7 to 4, and my highest paying dividend is 3 times my stake, four times, 3 to 1. So this would be a great example to show that even though I've got a lost stake, so I've backed Antepost, I've thrown my money away. People say that's the root of it, injuries, all those sorts of bits and pieces. At this point, I am well ahead in the Mare's Novice Hurdle. Now, of course, we might get the case that some of these horses don't run, which means that their percentage chance of winning comes completely out of it. But let's just say, for example, my whirlwind for Nicky Henderson comes out. That then puts the percentage chance up to a 10 to 11 poke because it was a 33 to 1 shot as it sounds. Let's say Lamarcais doesn't actually make it to the festival, so it has no chance. We're dropping ourselves now down to like a relative odds of 13 to 8. So let's say Dulcita, Manila Melody, Maria's Rock all make it there. Now, the worst payout I'm getting for that sort of spread, considering my percentage chance on current odds, is 7 to 4. So I'm still beating that. And obviously my highest payout is still 3 to 1. So even if a couple of them didn't run, I'm still sat in a decent position. So just for the fact of keeping my spreadsheet in, I'm going to pop these back. I think that was a 7 to 1 poke. So that's it for the Mare's Novice Hurdle. Now, the main reason why I look at this sort of stuff is it boosts my ego to see that I've beaten the value and I know that I'm doing things right. But it also gives me a real good view to say, do you know what? Do I actually need a little bit of cover in these types of races? Some of the there's different ones to try and pick out. Some races I've not got so covered well as others, but what we'll do, we'll just we'll skim off from the Supreme and you can get a good feel for what I've got. I won't go through every single one because I want to keep this clip fairly short, but I've got nothing to hide. So something like the Supreme here, we can see it's £134 worth of live stakes, 25 quids lost. So obviously the combined stakes are that 160. Now, this lowest paying percentage here, where we've got it as 113%. Now that's not possible. 100% is possible if you've backed every single runner in the race. It's worked out relative to the payout compared to the stakes. And essentially what it's assuming is the fact that if I've staked £135 and my lowest, or actually more than that, I've staked 160 and my lowest payout is 140 quid, you'd be pretty disappointed if you weren't getting a winner. This needs a little bit of work on that side of things. Obviously, this is why I used the Mare's Novice Hurdle example in the first instance, because it was a lot clearer to really see what's going on. But if we stick away from these for the time being, something like Soviet Pimpernel that I've backed at 105 on the exchanges, that's taking commission into consideration. Now, I have put the current odds as 33 to 1 with the bookmakers. That's not strictly true because obviously on the exchanges he's probably still available at a reasonable price. In terms of percentage thing, it's a small amount, but that's where it could be. But these little icons on the right hand side are relatively telling me where we are. See Blue Sarah we've got for a small stake in there on a bet that I can't cash out of. It's a red marker because we haven't got the value there. We've actually messed up in that particular race. Shishkin, you can see we've done well. Unaccepted is still the same price as it was before, so it's an amber icon on the rag status. But it just gives you an idea of coverage in there. Now, for example, if there was a horse that's going to be running over the weekend, and I think to myself, do you know what? I actually think this is a bit of a beaut. So Shishkin could be the example. So he ran at Newbury, thought he could be a bit of an aeroplane. Was interested to see how he was running during the race to see whether he was going to be a Dovecut hurdle horse, which I think is where he's going to go at Kempton, where Angel's Breath ran last season, or whether they were going to think about having to step him up in trip, because I was a little bit worried with his bumper form that he might be a bit of a boat. All of his racing, the rules racing, and his points have come on fairly flat track, so he's still got that question mark for Cheltenham, but he was a 25 to 1 poke. There was a lot to like about the way that he went about his business. He was never a 25 to 1 poke after the race. Fortunately, good old Paddy Power still had the prices available even after the race. I mean, I backed it in running, but we got 25 to 1 on him. And I didn't need to have a look at this. But if you were going to consult the BetLoader to see where you need to be in with it, if you're looking at the fact we've staked £160 here. Now, let's just say, to make it easy, a horse is 16 to 1 for the Supreme. And you're thinking to yourself, look, I've already backed 8 runners in there. I do think this has got a chance, and I do think this price is going to shorten up. But do I really want to be chucking another tenner in there? The reality is, yes, you probably do. Now, if you're beating the odds, you're doing the right thing. 16 to 1 poke, you stick a tenner on it here, you're going to get £170 back. So in terms of combined stake, you might just be covering your outset, but it's another one that's in the book, so it gives your percentage chance of winning the race a massive increase. If that horse was well fancied and got backed into sort of a 3 to 4 to 1 poke, that's going to move this up 20%. And you're getting some coverage in there. So don't be afraid to back more horses. Obviously, you just don't want to be getting too far over your head because it's risky business. Now you see some of these that I've backed at big prices. Son of Camas before he won at Newbury. Andy Dufresne, I just backed him before he went and ran in the Moscow Flyer. Shishkin, we got the quick one in. Blue Sarah took a bit of a punt, thinking a McManus horse, but that was wrong. Fiddler on the Roof is one of those that I probably should have backed sooner than I did. I was a bit stubborn, but I just wanted him for some cover. Unaccepted, I still give a chance to. Master Debonair, I do actually quietly fancy, but there's not been enough support since. That worries me slightly. Hanging there's an absolute no hope now, but backed on the exchange at a price, so it was a tenner on. And Soviet Pimpernel as well, we backed on the exchanges at a big price. Probably not good enough to win it, but it's some cover. So it wouldn't typically be backing this many horses in a race. When it comes to the promotional offers with the bookmakers, Sky Bet, Betway, all those sorts of people, when they're offering money back specials on the first race, you're getting a free roll on these sort of things. So you don't have to obviously cover your entire stake. But let's just say, for example, you've backed 3 horses in the Supreme, Antepost, you've got the first 3 in the bet in, your £20 free bet, although if Sky only do a tenner maybe, whatever the free bet is, you would be sensible to cover that. And you would be sensible if you get two £10 free bets to cover it across a couple of stakes. Now, if you've already got £1,000 on the Supreme and you're going to stick a tenner on a 6 to 1 shot, I would suggest don't do that. What's the point of the 60 quid? Maybe just try and boost up something else. But for the level stakes that most people can get away with playing at, I'm sort of your £20, £25 punter, tenors, Antepost that will build up. We'll see that later on with Paisley Park. But you can, those sort of promotional offers are decent, and also it's very easy to set up more than one account. We've all got family, friends, all those sorts of bits and pieces. So you want to use those to your full advantage. And again, having a look at this sort of view gives you a real feel of where you might want some cover. Arkle, I've not played too many in there. This will be one that's probably handy for me to flip over to Odds Checker shortly to go through some of the other pieces. But the one I'll mention in the Arkle here is Bapalm. Paul Keeley's tipped it up. It was 25 to 1 the night that he tipped up. It's now a top price, I think top price 16 to 1. It's around about 14. No, maybe it's top price 14 to 1. But yeah, anywho, the price has been smashed because Paul Keeley's tipped up. It hasn't done anything in between. So these are the sort of times of this time of year is when you might want to be backing your opinion, and especially if you hear word of something that someone said, especially using Bet365 cash outs, you better just to stick a tenner on as cover just in case. You can always chop yourself out. But so Arkle, for example, here, back 2 horses in there, 25 to 1 notebook. We've got Brewing Up a Storm in there as well from the beginning of the season. The relative chance odds based on their current odds is 11 to 4 poke, and in terms of payout, the worst payout is evidently notebook. I'm getting paid out on odds there of 12 to 1 on my £30 worth of stake. So although I backed him at 25s, because I backed more than one horse in the race and the stakes are across those 2 horses, it would mean it's relatively a 12 to 1 payout. But given the fact the horse is a 4 to 1 poke now, I am quite happy with that. And it's not all about beating the prices. The main thing is you want your relative odds, your actual percentage chance of winning the race to be better than what's in here. Would be a real result. We can look at the Mares Hurdle would be a nice example. We don't know where Honeysuckle's going to go. I've backed Honeysuckle 7 to 2 any race, 50 quid, so that's the 225, and I backed Benedict any race for 60 quid, which is the 220. So, I mean, if Honeysuckle went and switched to the Champion Hurdle, I've already got 7 to 2 on any race, so sort of covered. And if Honeysuckle went to the Champion Hurdle, then Benny DG's price would only shorten. But in terms of payout on this, you've got £110 worth of stakes that are in there. 220 is the lowest payout, which is Benny. 225 is the biggest payout, which is Honeysuckle. Representative odds, given the fact I've staked 110, means the worst payout's an even money poke. The best payout's just over an even money poke. On their current odds, my actual chance of this result being a winning result is 2 to 5, so I've smashed the odds again there. And you look at the prices they are now, they're sort of 2 to 1-ish the pair. You'd be backing 2s on if you were backing that. That's the price that you would be getting in terms of value. So getting even money the pair, will quite happily take that. So rather than skimming through all of them within here, It's just really helpful for this time of year for me to be looking at the ones that I might want to boost up. There's lots of horses, opinion wise, that I would already backed this early in the season anyway. Um, but there's lots of other bits and pieces that come out as well. So I touched on Bapalm that Paul Keeley's mentioned. Another one that's seen some support recently is Bapalm. Sorry, I've just said Bapalm. That's the Arkle. Is Durasso for the Champion Hurdle. Now he is one that I have backed on the exchanges. Um, Slightly frustrated that Ruby Walsh had mentioned him because I had a few quid more on the machine that I wanted to get matched. But you look at the price that this horse is now. He's been well supported for the Champion Hurdle trial at Haydock, the new one hurdle. He's as short as 25 to 1 now. He was 50s last night for this race. Non-run and no bet, you've got 18s and 16s with Bet365 and Sky Bet. I've backed him at 75 on the machine. It's not a great race for me, the Champion Hurdle, as it's. Do you know what I say that? Underwhelmed myself. So we've got Durasso there, and we can chop this one down as well now because it's no longer a 33s poke as it was last night we did this. But yeah, we've got a bit on Durasso, only a tenner at 75. I didn't get any more matched. I've got Saudi at reasonable prices across a couple of odds. 25s ish, I think, was my biggest stake. Might have got some 33s, I think, with Skybet actually. And Eldorado Allen, I've taken a little bit of a punt on him. So in terms of coverage and what their current odds are, it's basically it's a 9 to 2 shot that I might get the winner of the Champion Hurdle. But in terms of payouts, I'm looking at 10 to 1 as my lowest payout, and I'm looking at 25 to 1 for my biggest payout. So it wouldn't be the greatest race in terms of cover, but it's not a bad one. This might be one that you could look at something else at big prices. One that is interesting me is Call My Lord. I do think 16 to 1 bet 365. Non-run and no bet. It's first run round Cheltenham was a winning one. I think he's better on better ground. He's one that I'll be keen to get in my book. And again, given the fact that the price, his top price there, sort of non-run and no bet market anyway, you'd be tempted to back him on there now in case things happen within the coming weeks, injuries, all those sorts of things. Hold on to the bet, and then if worse comes to worse, you've got the option to cash out, or in this instance, non-run and no bet, you get your stake back. But anywho, there's lots of talking horses this time of year where Ruby Walsh has come out about this one, so this one's halved in price over the last couple of days. Obviously, there was the one I mentioned about Bapalm in the Arkle. Now, granted, you need to fancy these horses. They need to have a case made for them. There'll be a few horses they get backed at big prices that you couldn't really make a case for. But it's about getting these horses on side. It's about bolstering your opportunities in each individual race. You don't have to be backing these horses to make profit. If you've got £100 staked on a race and there's a 20 to 1 shot that you think should be a 10 to 1 shot, have a fiver on it. Because at least if it wins, you've covered your stake for the race and it doesn't make a real dent in your profits because it's there. And it's another percentage as well towards your chance of actually winning on the race. So the Champion Hurdle market would be one that will shake up at the moment. It's another one that's going to shake up in a couple of weeks when the Irish Champion Hurdle goes ahead. Lots of previews and sort of those sort of things will come out. So just pay attention to comments and just little things like Ruby Walsh mentioning Durasso as his lively outsider. I think it was 40s he put him up at yesterday on the road to Cheltenham. Obviously he's been back now for this race at Haydock. They're just those sort of ones that if you've got anything about you and you think, do you know what, I actually would give that a little bit of a chance. You know it's Ruby Walsh. You know people are going to back it. It's still a 20 to 1 poke, so it's still only got a 5% chance of, well, less than that, 5% chance of winning the race. But you're getting a bit of value. Would you rather be sulking about the fact you missed it or get on? There'll be a few other ones as well in the handicaps, those sort of things that happen within there. There'll be some interesting ones as well, I think, that are going to be coming about. Obviously, the Champion Chase is pretty much set where it is. Undersow's a big enough price regardless of what happens. The only thing that could really happen after the Clarence House Chase is Defi could move out if he does get beaten, but not a lot's going to be changing within there. The Champion Bumper is one that you don't really want to get too stuck into a Champion Bumper. It's hard. I mean, it's not necessarily hard to get the winner, but it's hard with so many nice types that come out that probably will be really nice types going forward to sort of find the right ones. Willie Mullins has got one coming out on Sunday that I've put in my write-ups. 28s, where is he? Yeah, Power of Pause. I'm under the impression that it works very well, and it worked very well in front of a horse, or a filly that's just come out and won nicely for the yard. So, but there's bits and pieces of information you get fed. There's potential types of horses that could be nice in there, but that'll be one where the prices will tend to shorten up. It's just this time of year where comments and things come out. It's just worth keeping an eye on odds checker once a day or every couple of days to see what's going on. Um, Patrick Mullins did the new Racing Post, like they're calling it a weekly magazine. It's a YouTube show. Um, they were talking about Allaho, where he's going to be going sort of next time out. And festival targets, I think they were sort of mentioning that off the back of um, carefully selected, going whether he's going to go 4 mile or RSA chase. Patrick Mullins said that Allaho is much like a Black Hercules. Now, Black Hercules was favourite for the National Hunt Chase and went and won the JLT. Allaho, as you can see here, with Paddy Power Betfair, is 33s for the Marsh Trophy, not the JLT, the Marsh Chase. And he's as short as 20s, but that's non-runner no bet, obviously, with Bet365. But away from the non-runner no bet, and we take some of these dodgy companies out, it's a 20 to 1 poke in places. With that comment that's come out, and given what he might end up doing over the next couple of weeks, that's the sort of one that you might think, do you know what? Trappy enough races the JLT. I might just have a little go on that at a price just to get it in the book. Um, it's difficult for me to sort of pinpoint at this moment in time which ones are the ones worth jumping on. Obviously, if we've done this a few days ago, Durasso could have been mentioned. I like to keep a lot of them, well, stay quiet. It's a 75 to 1 poke. It was a 40 to 1 poke when Ruby Walsh put it up there. I don't want to just be chucking horses out there for the sake of chucking them out there. Stairs hurdle stuff. Obviously, the entries have come out, so there's been wiggles and moves in there. Nothing too significant to worry about with. These sorts of things are interesting. Riders on the Storm being backed in for a handicap. Old Grangewood, Dan Skelton's done a recent Racing Post podcast where he's been mentioning about a target for him, which is why the price has probably shortened up. There'll be lots of bits and pieces like that are happening. Touching on the Mares Novice Hurdle quickly, Patrick Mullins said Lamarck is back working. They expect to get a run into her before the festival, and she's going to go there. So he's gone there fresh with runners before. So Lamarck that I mentioned before on a preview with Daryl and Jamie saying that she might not make the festival, I think she probably will. You saw in my book earlier, I've got her at 33s, but sevens could still look a reasonable price, I think. Kim Muir, there's a few that have been nibbled about in those sorts of ones. Triumph, there'll be some movements about that, depending on what happens with Goshen or Goshen. Albert Bartlett's always a market that fiddles about loads, and it's difficult for me because I like to get stuck into the race. I feel like I'm quite a good judge of it. Um, you can afford to just wait until the day on these sorts of ones. I think Time Hill's a terrible price from an Antepost perspective now. I think he could be 5 to 1 on the day. I do think he'll go Ballymore though personally. There's just a few in here that are slightly interesting. The one that I'd flag up while we're doing the video in here would be Asterion Forlange. I think he's very smart, but this Lord Royal was mentioned by Patrick Mullins again on that Racing Post show. Now, he mentioned Duvan in the same sentence, so that's going to get people excited. Now, he wasn't suggesting that he's going to be as good as Duvan. He just reminds him in terms of a look. He's a tall, leggy French horse, is what he said. He'll be one for fences, which is normally what you look for in an Albert Bartlett. So you could imagine he'll be there or thereabouts. The 20s that's available there with Ladbroke Coral probably wouldn't last a whole deal longer, I don't think. And given he might run in that 2 mile 6 race at the Dublin Racing Festival, that sort of price could change. Given the fact that 20s is the top price, 16s and sort of stuff going down, you'd think Bet365's non-runner no bet 16 to 1, especially with the cash out option, would be tempting. I'm saying non-runner no bet. They're only championship races, aren't they? So yeah, it's not one non-runner no bet. You'd want to probably take the poke at the 20s. But again, it's the cash out side of things. Anyway, he's one that might be something that's going to move about a bit anyway. And there'll be bits of blue that go on odds checker that are sort of red herrings. So just do a little bit of research. Ask me questions whenever you want about horses. If you're seeing things being backed, you're seeing things happening, let me know what's going on with them. We touched on Column of Fire in a write-up earlier in the week in the video from last Sunday about horses to watch this week. So this is sort of the time of year where there'll be lots of moves in the market. If you're fancying something, keep an eye on what's happening to it. You want to just get stuck into a few bits and pieces. You want to have a good idea of what's going on with your particular portfolio. So if you haven't got the BetLoader already and you want it, drop me a message or send an email to info@chelt-mental.co.uk. If you've already got it and you haven't got this particular button in there, which no one would have, then drop me a message. I'll send you it, and then all you've got to do is copy and paste your table that you've already got on the left-hand side into it. It's not the be all and end all, but it is a nice quick highlighter to see what's going on with bits and pieces. Um, as mentioned briefly earlier, Paisley Park. I've been backing him since the back end of last season. Not huge amounts of money that's on there, but he's in multiples and such. But you can see that I've backed him around about 100 to 30 as my average odds, and obviously he's a 5 to 4 pote now, so they're looking like tremendous value. The main thing that I like to look at is the percentage increase in chance. So, like I said, a 20 to 1 shot that now goes down to 10 to 1, you would think to yourself, that's decent value. You've got a 10-point swish there, but reality is it's only got a 9% chance of winning the race now, and it had less than a 5% chance before. So you've increased by around about 4 or 5%. In this particular instance, where you're backing a 3 to 1 shot or 100 to 30 shot that's now gone down to 5 to 4, I've actually given myself a 20% chance, 20% more chance of it actually winning, which is in its own right is a 4 to 1 winner. It's obviously you don't get paid for just nicking the value, but if you put yourself in enough strong positions, you'll get some winners. My tiny little mark at the bottom here is the forecast festival winners. This is adding up all of my percentage chances to say that, as far as I'm concerned, like without doubt, I'm getting 6 festival winners. You can see from the table on my right hand side here the sort of prices that we've got. I mean, 6 year was the wild one. There's a few that are at big sort of prices, but I'd say my average payout is. Well, go on, let's tot it up. We'll leave 6 year out because he is the big boy, but you can see the average down the bottom here, 450 quid. If I was going to get 6 winners at 450 quid, about 3 grand, isn't it? So across there, I'd like to think I'm in front. It doesn't always work out exactly like that, but year on year, I tend to be at the number of my forecast winners, if not above. And obviously, these are just selections on singles. Those percentage in terms of winners as well are completely ignoring all of these horses I've backed any race. So I'm not saying they're going to be winning. Some of them we still don't even really know where they're going to be going, but things like Chantry House, we might have a bit more cover in something like a Supreme. Course Sublime probably going to end up in a champion hurdle. The reason I took that price was because he was bigger than the champion hurdle for any race. There's Danny Whizbang any race. There's Sam Crow. There's different bits and pieces in there for the any race that would only increase the percentage chance of me getting some winners. So this is the time of year you want to be taking stock of the anti-post bets that you've placed. There'll be lots of you that haven't even struck an anti-post bet yet, and you're just thinking about things going forward. But this is the time where lots of markets will move. Just start to get yourself a bit stuck in. If you've built up any free bets, use them to your advantage. Um, and just really keep a track of what's going on in there. If you want the BetLoader, as I say, I'll send it out to any of you. If you've got any questions, then give me a shout. But it's this time of year we really want to be putting ears to the ground, listening to things on Twitter, Facebook. As I say, send me messages, ask me questions if you want to know anything. Not saying I know everything, but if there's something I've heard, I will help you guys out with it. It's just about nicking a bit of a potential value. And if you sit on one side and you wait till potentially the next day or a couple of days, you will miss prices. Look at Durasso, gone from 40 to 1 when Ruby Wall said it a couple of days ago, and he's now half that price. You'd be more gutted if you hadn't have had your fiver on when you fancied it at those prices, and especially the ones at big prices as well. It doesn't take a lot to get yourself a load of cover. When you're getting horses that are sort of 4 to 1 or lower, you need to be sticking reasonable amounts on to get a drawback. They're the ones that you want to be. Or you can still steam into, and they're still good value 4 to 1 shots, but you'd be more inclined to be like sort of really confident, make sure everything's in place, all those sort of things before you were sticking a sizable sum on. If you're chucking a fiver, a £10, or a free bet here and there, I know obviously everyone's got different staking limits, all that sort of stuff. I'm just chucking them out as my sort of small change bets. But you know what I mean. If you're backing something at a 40 to 1 poke and you're having a pound on, then that's your sort of your level stake, a pound. Then if you were going to be backing an even money shot, you'd be having to stick 40 quid on to get the same sort of return. So just don't worry so much about the big price ones, and especially if you're using Bet365, you've got the option to cash out, so it's a relatively low risk way of playing. I don't know whether I'll get another one of these in before, in terms of talking about anti-post stuff, because the closer we get to the festival, the less rules apply towards anti-post. I'll definitely be doing more videos before the time, but I'll probably leave these anti-post angles as it is now. If there's enough questions or enough feedback from it for me to do another video, then it will come out. Otherwise, thanks for watching this, guys. As I say, send me any messages. If you want the BetLoader, send me a message on the page or send me an email. Thanks for your support and be lucky.